Hello. Welcome along to episode 249 of Adventures in Pop. My name is Simon Jacobs. And yes, I've been away on holiday. It was just a little brief few days in Ibiza. You can tell, can't you? Yeah, a little bit of a suntan. You're looking fabulous as well. In this episode, we're going to get a little bit political and talk a bit about some of the things that have been going on, rumbling along in this country over the summer, and use it as a bit of a stepping stone to play a song that I wrote a year ago. Let me explain. I did a Adventures in Pop episode precisely a year ago. It was the last week of August last year. And it was about writing a song that was inspired by some really unpleasant events actually going on in this country, where people were rioting around the country in a way that I think was very much provoked by social media and the far right in this country, kind of whipping up a fervour of craziness that was directed towards foreigners, immigrants, on the basis that I think there had been a completely spurious claim that somebody who had arrived illegally had then gone on to assault a child, or it was something like that. And I think it was a totally empty and, without any validity type claim, but in a way that didn't matter and the damage was done. And what we had around the country this time last year were lots of kind of little mini, but nasty mini riots in little town centres of the far right, attacking hotels, attacking the police, attacking anybody else who got in their way. And it went on for a few days, a few nights, and then was really quite toughly dealt with in a way that I, by the way, totally support by the government, and came to an end. And, and it's one of those things that is more likely, I suppose, to occur during the summer when people are on their summer holidays and the weather's nice. And, I guess there's not much else in the news, and there is a real opportunity then to stir up trouble if that is the way you are inclined. So a year ago, I put out an Adventures episode. I think it was Adventures 179, if you want to go back and listen to it. And it was about how do you write a sensible kind of pop song about something that is very raw, is very emotive, very political, has just happened. Is there a way of doing it which doesn't fall into all the obvious traps of being cheesy, or dreadfully sincere or whatever? So what I want to do is play you a little bit of what I said a year ago, and then update to where we are this year, and then the song that I was talking about last year, which I didn't actually play in its entirety. Well, I didn't play much of it at all. I'm going to play all of it for you. I've just brushed it up, and it seems as relevant today as it was last year. So this is what I said a year ago. I'm more interested in how do you take an event like that, which is controversial, which has just happened, which is, I suppose, political. As soon as you start commenting on it, I think that's probably a political comment. How do you take something like that people have very recently been involved with, or certainly have very recently been reading about, and turn that into a song? And more difficult still, turn it into a pop song without, trivializing it or glorifying it or exaggerating it for effect. Because I think all of those kinds of things, because it's something real and it's something recent, if you do any of those things, if you make it sound like it was quite funny, or it was fabulous, or the world's about to end and then the world's not about to end, I don't think you're doing yourself or the situation any favours. So this is a really tricky one. Okay, let me tell you a little bit where this came from, because apart from obviously hearing the news and thinking, oh my goodness, that's very depressing, I also listened to a podcast, and in the podcast I was particularly struck, I'd say I was particularly shocked actually, by a recording of a real person, a woman in fact, who was at one of these riots. She was essentially one of the rioters, and she was screaming into the microphone. I think she was asked, why are you here to, what's your reason for coming here? Why are you so angry? And she was screaming into the microphone all kinds of stuff, which you're really best off not hearing. And then the interviewer said, what was particularly distressing about interviewing this woman, who really wasn't making much sense but was very angry, very incoherently angry, was that she was carrying her baby at the same time. And then you start thinking, oh my goodness, what kind of influence is that for the child? Hopefully not old enough to really understand what's going on, but I don't know. So I found that really shocking, but it was quite a strong image of, a woman at a riot, part of the riot. So you normally just think, oh, it's a bunch of thuggy men and they're horrible. But here was a white woman with her white right-wing friends in the middle of a sort of, I guess a riot in that, they've come here to damage things and attack the police and cause kind of generalized mayhem. And it was shocking. So I had that filtered into my head, and I was thinking, okay, let's see if I can write something that is going to not be dumb. And I do think it's really hard in this situation. Okay, so what's been going on? Well, this summer, we haven't had those types of riots. We have had some bad behaviour outside hotels that house immigrants coming across to be processed. And while they're waiting to be processed, they have to be housed somewhere. And people have got very upset about the fact that they're, in hotels, in towns, in residential areas. I'm not quite sure what the alternative is. If you close down those hotels, what are you going to do? These people do have a right to have an asylum claim checked. And if they don't have a right to asylum, they get returned. And if they do, they don't get returned. I think that's kind of fair, isn't it? In my view, that is how it should be. But what's been going on this summer is lots of people talking about how Britain is a tinderbox. It's about to go, any moment now. And there are people like Vance in America, and I suppose Elon Musk as well, joining in the fray. And it kind of feels like there is a gleeful desire for something bad to happen. It's like they've been just waiting for that moment, an excuse, an opportunity, using all their social media might and muscle to get people ready for, when this thing is going to happen, when this thing's going to blow. And the interesting thing is it hasn't blown, because there hasn't really been an opportunity. And I think what's really relevant for this song is actually, I think what it proves is the vast majority of people in this country, and I mean the vast majority of these people in this country, are not inclined to behave like that. Unfortunately, those people, the quiet, silent majority, and this song, by the way, is called The Silent Majority, they don't really get heard because they're silent. That's the whole point. And they're just getting on with their business. The vast majority of the people in this country getting on with their lives, and they're not obsessed with who's going to be, coming across the water and being housed in a local hotel and therefore wanting to burn it down and destroy whatever. So it's really interesting that this thing has been rumbling along all summer with lots of people who should really know better getting involved and giving it a good stir. And yet here we are right at the end of August. It's going to be back to school time next week in September, and really nothing that bad has occurred at all. And I think that is due to the overwhelming good common sense and, proportionality of the vast majority of the British public, who I say thank you to for being blooming sensible and not getting involved in this nonsense, this unpleasant and vitriolic nonsense. And that, I suppose, is what this song is about. It is a hymn to the silent majority who don't believe in those things and who don't behave like that, and bless them. And maybe the silent majority, maybe they should be a bit less silent, but they're certainly the majority, and thank God they're there. And I've just finished by saying, actually, last week we had the Notting Hill Carnival, as we always do on the bank holiday weekend in West London. I think attended by about 2 million people, and the weather was fantastic, so there was a very good turnout. And that's another place where I think, people who are up to no good sort of hope that something distinctly unpleasant's going to happen, and then they'll be able to cancel the carnival or have it moved to, the countryside in Norfolk or something. And it went, as far as I know, and I've seen some lovely pictures and I've read some really quite moving accounts of it. It went fantastically well and was a demonstration of multicultural London at its absolute best. And, everyone had a jolly good time. And I think there was no violence whatsoever. So thank you for that too. So although people have wanted to paint London as a hellhole and the UK as a smouldering island of resentment where people are just about to go, I'm not sure any of that really is entirely true. I do know that some people are very angry. I think some people have got a right to be annoyed, but there's a huge difference between, feeling annoyed and even seriously angry about something and wanting then to go and throw bricks or worse at innocent people or the police or whoever. So proportionality has, I think, won the day. And here is the song that is, I think, a thank you in a way to that very expression of Britishness, which is not to have to drape a Union Jack flag or a St. George's flag over everything. I think that's a sign of insecurity, or certainly it's performative, isn't it? You don't need to do that. It doesn't prove that you're any more patriotic than anybody else. So I've got no time for that either, really. And the last thing I'll say is we're just about to go into September, where it's going to be lots and lots of new music. And actually my new album and Goldhawk Fox's new album and the Rothman and Jacobs album, they're not really political at all. So this is my political moment before we go back to a nice bunch of interesting, fun songs that are much more pop music-y than maybe this one. Look, one day I might release my political album, and I'll just grab together all the songs I've ever written that have a vague political bent to them. I put them all out together. That will be one hell of an album, won't it? Whew. And in the meantime, let me leave you with The Silent Majority. You take care, have a lovely weekend, and I'll be back with brand new material next week. Bye-bye. Excuse me for asking, but can you put that banner down? Did you and your jackboot friends come here to set fire to this town? Maybe you should take a look at yourself. I mean, what kind of mother has a brick in one hand and a baby girl in the other? Somebody went fishing and it seems you took the bait. You don't believe in anything just know what you hate. And the silent majority, well, they're nothing at all like this. 'Cause I think you'll find most people here reject the prejudice. You manage to convince yourself you're doing something good. Tell me, how far have you come to terrorize this neighborhood? But is this something that just happened suddenly? Or have you lost your self-respect in all kinds of conspiracy? And somebody went fishing and seemed you took the bait. You don't believe in anything, you just know what you hate. And the silent majority, well, they're nothing at all like this. I think you'll find most people here reject the prejudice. So why did you come here looking for a fight? When did you give into the fear of the far right? Excuse me for asking, but can you put that banner down? Did you and your jackboot friends come here to set fire to this town? And the silent majority, well, they're nothing at all like this. I think you'll find most people here reject the prejudice. And the silent majority, well, they're nothing at all like this. I think you'll find most people here reject the prejudice. And the silent majority, well, they're nothing at all like this.